A warm welcome to Diplomatic Channel. I'm Millicent Walker. Here are the highlights of the programme. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak gives striking prominence to migration challenge, says his immigration plan is reducing illegal entry into Britain. Plus, Nigeria and the Netherlands hold multi-sectoral consultation meeting in Abuja to strengthen bilateral ties and harness economic interest. But before that, let's check other top stories in diplomatic circles.
Romania has recalled its ambassador to Kenya, Dragos Tigal, and has apologized after he compared Africans to monkeys. This comes after African diplomats demanded a public apology. Dragos Tigal made the comments during a meeting at the UN building in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, on April the 26th. Mr. Tigal's behavior was first made public some days ago by Kenyan Foreign Affairs official Kamal Machara. We deeply regret this situation and offer our apologies to all those who have been affected, the statement from Romania's Foreign Affairs Ministry read. A Canadian official appointed to investigate claims of election interference has quit, citing criticism from opposition parties. David Johnston, at 81, was appointed in March to investigate allegations of Chinese interference in Canada's federal elections in 2019 and 2021. But in a letter to the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, Mr. Johnston said he would leave his role by the end of the month of June. He has been accused of bias because of his personal ties to Mr. Trudeau. Mr. Johnson said his objective as an independent special rapporteur had been to help build trust in Canada's democratic institutions. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky appears to have confirmed that his country's long-awaited counter-offensive against Russia has started and that his military troops are in good shape, but he has not given details of the stage or state the counter-offensive was in. The comments comes after an escalation of fighting in the south and east of Ukraine and speculations about progress of widely anticipated push. Ukrainian troops are reported to have advanced in the east near Bakhmut and in the south near Zaporizhia and have carried out long-range strikes on Russian targets. But assessing the reality on the front lines is difficult, with two of the warring sides presenting contrasting narratives, Ukraine claiming progress and Russia that is fighting off attacks. Denmark and the United States are working together to address Russian aggression in Ukraine. President Joe Biden made these remarks while speaking during an Oval Office meeting with Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, who was on a visit to the U.S. amid speculation that the White House will use this visit to vet her as the first female NATO Secretary General. According to diplomats, Frederiksen, 45, has emerged as a serious contender to replace Jens Stoltenberg, who is scheduled to step down as chief of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in September. Ms. stepped into limelight on the international scene last year as a staunch supporter of Ukraine in its war with Russia, gaining respect for our efforts to strengthen Western unity in the face of the conflict. The main obstacle for our potential candidacy is that Denmark has long been a laggard in defense spending and has come under pressure to bring in military spending up to 2% of the GDP, a key goal for NATO member states.
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak gives striking prominence to migration challenge. Now, he is doing this to migration challenge in the country as he plans to stop migrants arriving in Britain in small boats. He says it will reduce crossings by 20%, an update he hopes will ease criticism from his party and in the country over immigration policy. Mr. Sunak, who is expected to lead his governing Conservative Party into a national election next year, has promised to stop the boats as one of his 5 pledges to Britain after he was propelled to power in October last year. UK immigration lawyer Mr. Dayo Fadina joins me now for more perspective. Welcome to Diplomatic Channel.
Oh, hello. Thanks for having me.
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is giving prominence to migration challenge in the country at this time. Will this shape the perceptions of his competence, do you think?
Thank you. At this point in time, I do not think so. I don't think it's going to be making any difference to his ability and his competence at all. The way the Prime Minister is going on right now is the gung-ho attitude and that very, very straightforward approach towards immigration And the fact that he wants to reduce immigration numbers would not make any difference at all. The Congo attitude is of no difference at all to anybody at this point. You would realize that at this point, it's not particularly doing very, very well with the economy. The economy is not too favorable as far as the majority of the Brits are concerned. We have high inflation. We have, high interest rates. The interest rates right now are about 5.25%. There's inflation, cost of living through the roof. So these are the major things affecting the majority of Brits at this point in time. So if he now wants to rely on the fact that he would be able to make use of immigration as a way of showing his competence, I think he would be so disappointed if he's thinking that way. It's not going to happen this time around. Most governments in the UK, they always want to use immigration as a blunt instrument, to try to convince people to vote for them months before the elections. So it's not very, very surprising that he's doing the same right now. Previous Tory leaders and governments over the last 13 years have done the same. So not too surprising, but at this point, his competence, even regarding his immigration strategy and the rules and regulations to be brought in, would not make any difference at all.
But we are seeing the UK net migration hit 606,000 in 2022, the highest figure ever recorded. And then you have the latest estimates from the Office of the National Statistics. Now, the rise, they say, is driven by people arriving from non-EU countries on government-issued visas to study, work, join family members. So in terms of the statistics, what clearly do we know as to who is allowed to come and live in the UK?
Well, there are so many categories. There are various categories of people who are allowed to actually come to the UK with a visa. We have students who want to come and study. We have family members who either want to come and visit their family members, or who want to come in. To live with family members who are present and settled in the UK. We have the category of, medical professionals where there's a shortage of labor and skills. People like nurses, care workers, medical doctors. We also have engineers. Again, shortage of that very particular skill. Specialized IT. Consultants are also in the mix. We also have teachers. There's particularly teachers who are quite good in science and mathematics subjects. So these are the categories of people who are normally actually allowed to come to the UK, so long as they have a visa. But the situation to do with the dependents and people coming in with dependents, that's been restricted somewhat now, particularly to do with students. But all other categories are still allowed, to at least come to the UK with their dependents, apart from students, either undergraduate students or postgraduate students, except you are in a very particular specialized area to do with research.
And I guess it also hasn't changed for students from Nigeria, which is the next most common nationality of student visa holders in the UK, followed by Pakistan and Bangladesh. No,
the government position has not changed. In fact, they want to make it more difficult. Nigerians, for instance, and so many other countries, not just Nigerians. That very particular change of policy would apply to nearly all students coming from different countries all over the world. But Nigerians are in the majority, likewise Pakistanis and people from Bangladesh. It's not going to change as far as dependent visas are concerned. You're only allowed to come to the UK now individually, not with your dependents. So that position is still very clear. But my take on this position of the government and that very particular policy it's going to be in conflict, very heavily in conflict with students' rights to family life, is that students' right to married life. The UK is still a signatory to the ECHR, that's the European Convention on Human Rights, under the Human Rights Act. So I'm not too sure or clear on how the government will be dealing with that. And I could foresee, in fact, I could predict so many legal challenges regarding that person's right to family life and married life if the student is not allowed to come to the UK with his wife or his children. But that position is still very, very clear and it's still there. And it's going to be there for quite a while, no doubt. So there's nothing anybody can do about it now because that policy is very clear and they would not be allowing any postgraduate students to come to the UK any longer with a spouse or children, except you're in a specialized research area where you need to be in the UK for quite a long time.
Before Brexit, the EU and UK citizens had the freedom to live, work or study in any EU country without needing, a work visa. But this freedom of movement came to an end the 1st of January 2021. Do you see the British government revisiting the issue?
This particular government, no. This particular government is a, very hardcore right-wing government. And we should remember that the legitimacy of this very particular government and the fact that they're in power at all, was due to what they did some 3-4 years ago when they were campaigning for Brexit. In fact, the thrust of their campaign, the linchpin of the campaign in 2019 was to do with, let's get Brexit done. That was the mantra. So I cannot see this very particular government revisiting the issue of maybe they should reconsider going back or rejoining the EU. I don't think that's going to be I don't think they'll be doing that at all. But what I could foresee though is because of the problems the government is going through right now, particularly the economic problems, if they should lose the next election and Labour is now in government, there's a possibility, a very, very slight possibility that the Labour government might consider whether they should revisit the issue of, joining the EU again till we have a new government.
Going back on the immigration plan of the Prime Minister, do you see him stopping the boats as he has promised and not merely reducing their numbers?
Merely reducing the numbers, that's going to be tight. You see, over the years, the various British governments have not been able to come to terms, with well thought out policies to curb the number of people actually coming to the UK by boats, by these very small boats. It's been a very, very difficult situation for so many Tory governments. So, nonetheless, the current Tory government we have under Rishi Sunak, I cannot see him actually doing that at all. The possibility of him being able to succeed in curbing those boats, I can't see that happening, significantly. He might be able to reduce the number of boats, but to curb them altogether, I can't see that happening because the borders, the borders are so porous to a point where people coming even through the channel, it's so difficult to actually police them. And we should also remember that the number of these boats with their the agents smuggling these people into the UK, they normally go very high. They become very high during the summer period. So this summer, I could still see so many boats coming to the UK. His government might be able to curb the numbers, but not significantly, I'm afraid.
While Mr. Sunak had told us the government was on track to meet a goal of clearing the backlog of the long-standing asylum cases by the end of this year, the latest Home Office figures show, there are still 74,000 plus claims at the end of May awaiting initial decision. With just a few months to go, do you see the UK government, on track clearing this backlog of asylum seekers?
No, I don't. I can't see him actually, dealing with this backlog at all. I can't see him, reducing the backlog at all. It's well over about 73,000 now. And I think some few years ago, the backlog was not more than, I think, about 2-3 years ago, not more than, I think, about 15,000, 20,000, but it's now higher. And you say every single Tory government has been, boosting that they would be able to at least deal with the asylum backlog and so many other asylum immigration cases, but they've not been able to do so at all. Immigration
lawyer, Mr. Dayo Faduna, thank you for joining us on Diplomatic Channel.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure being with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome back. Let's take a break now. Diplomatic Channel continues in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Nigeria and the Netherlands are looking to strengthen bilateral relations in the area of renewable energy, healthcare, agriculture and information technology. At an economic consultation meeting held at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Abuja, both countries expressed interest in deepening their relationship.
Trade and investment. That's the focus of this multi-sectoral consultation meeting between Nigeria and the Kingdom of Netherlands. The two countries have enjoyed bilateral tie spanning over 3 decades, and this meeting is an avenue to renegotiate their agreements.
The present administration of His Excellency President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, has set a vision of building a thriving and sustainable economy that will generate wealth, create employment, boost foreign direct investment, and diversify the Nigerian economy further. In this regard, the government of Nigeria is open to exploring other areas of economic cooperation with the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
We recognize the importance of promoting and protecting investments in both our countries. It is important that we facilitate investment and that we provide a transparent legal framework to investors. In order to do so, it is necessary to modernize and expand provisions on investment facilitation and protection.
Representatives of 35 ministries, departments and agencies of the government, as well as private sector players are attending the meeting, and each makes propositions to the Netherlands delegation.
We have identified a number of areas that I think we can cooperate in any area basically that can transfer technology to us to build it locally. We are open to that. But I have looked at a few companies in Netherlands that I think we can cooperate with.
I want us to have an African Culture and Study Department in one of your universities in Netherlands. Number 2, I want you to please let us come together and develop a training capacity for our youth.
And I spoke earlier to the former Consul General of Nigeria to Germany and Vice President, Research, Chairman of the Association of Foreign Relations Professionals of Nigeria's editorial board, Ambassador John Ejinaka, on future prospects of the relationship between Nigeria and the Netherlands. Our guest joins me now, former Consul General of Nigeria to Germany, Ambassador John Ejinaka. Welcome to Diplomatic Channel.
Thank you for having me.
Nigeria and the Netherlands have held an economic consultation forum in the nation's capital. Do you see this meeting creating a better investment climate for both countries, more so that we have a new president?
Yeah, the bilateral relation between the two countries have been very strong in various areas. The meeting in Abuja is a a product of the Memorandum of Understanding signed in 2018, and then later that defined the areas of engagement between the two countries. And then later in 2019, there was also a document signed on trade and investment during the visit of the Prime Minister of Netherlands, Marcos, to Nigeria. This meeting is coming at an auspicious time, taking into consideration that Nigeria just had a new government in place, and it will provide an enabling environment for our other Western trading partners to take a cue. The new government has also started on a good note, looking at the issue of determining decision to remove the fuel subsidy, and then the pronouncements on unifying the various foreign exchange rate window. These are good signs. This is signs that the new government is ready to engage and ensure that the environment for business in Nigeria is good. So I think the meeting is coming at the right time. And it also defines, by the government reaction, it defines what should be expected from government going forward.
In spite of when we look at the long-standing bilateral relations between Nigeria and the Netherlands, negotiation for the establishment of a joint commission has been inconclusive since 1987. Do you see anything changing, especially, with this meeting?
Well, it is good that it's the fact that both countries have had good bilateral relations spanning decades. And the issue of having a joint commission is actually expected to define the specifics, having specific areas that drives the relationship. But that notwithstanding, our bilateral relations have been very positive. I think the Netherlands have defined instruments that govern their relations, an African-wide instrument, and which within the what is seen as economic-wide engagement that includes areas of agricultural value chain, looking at the issues of looking at the waterways and so on. So these defined areas have been governing them, which also include life sciences and so on, IT. So because of that, I believe that is why they have been reluctant in having a special engagement with Nigeria.
Do you see the renegotiation of the bilateral treaty as a means of strengthening economic interests and opportunities for both countries?
Yes, Nigeria and Netherlands have enjoyed good bilateral relations, especially in the area of trade and investments and so on. And if we look at what actually formed the areas of engagement between the two countries, for Nigeria, the major export of Nigeria to the Netherlands is crude oil, is cocoa beans, is petroleum gas, is rubber, sesame seed, and then spices. So these are the major drivers of Nigerian export to Netherlands. And then you look at Netherlands. Netherlands have been able to expand their economic involvement in Nigeria. Apart from the major ones we know for decades, you have the Shell petroleum that have been in Nigeria, and then you have the KLM airline, you have the Philips, you have the Velisco, Dutch flag, as I said, has been very prominent in Nigeria. That's what we knew growing up for our women, and before even the advent of the local prints and so on.
Ambassador John Ejinaka, thank you for joining us on Diplomatic Channel.
Thank you very much.
International community needs to take urgent step. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the international community must reform the international financial architecture to make it resilient, equitable and accessible to all. This policy brief sets out ambitious, concrete proposals in 6 areas to address historic injustices and systemic bias. According to him, the policy brief on moving beyond gross domestic product looks at measuring the things that really matter to people and their communities. GDP tells us the cost of everything and the value of nothing, he stressed that our world is not a gigantic corporation. Financial decisions should be based on more than a snapshot of profit and loss. And that's Diplomatic Channel this week. You can watch this and other episodes again on our YouTube channel /channels web and our channels playlist. I'm Millicent Walker. I'll see you next time.